Good afternoon, everyone. It is now a few minutes after 2 p.m., so we will convene the House Interim Working Group on Jobs and Business. I am Andrew Takuya Garrett, the co-chair of this working group. With me today is fellow co-chair, Representative Daniel Holt, and several members of the working group. Perhaps we can start with introductions from our far left, Rep. Nakashima, if you don't mind.
Representative Mark Nakashima, House District 1.
Rochelle Amasal, House District 36.
Nadine Nakamura, House District 15.
Dee Morikawa, Southwest Kauai.
Daniel Holt, downtown Honolulu.
Gene Ward, Hawaii Kai.
Trish Chica, District 37.
Okay, thank you, members, for joining us today. The purpose of today's public hearing is to solicit input on our draft report that was released roughly 3 weeks ago. But before we do so, Co-Chair Holt and I will run through a quick slide deck that shares highlights of what we've been doing over the last few months. So after the brief presentation, we'll then transition to receiving public testimony. So members, please note that we did receive several pieces of such testimony, and we do have a few testifiers here in person as well as on Zoom. So members, before we proceed, any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go live with our slide deck you can see on the screen there. Okay, so roughly a month after the August 8th wildfires, the House convened 6 working groups to review different aspects of the recovery. Over the last few weeks, the 5 other working groups have held their public hearings, which are all posted on the House YouTube page. Starting in early September, we met with various stakeholders across the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, and their suggestions served as a backbone of our report, which was released on November 1st, 2023. As noted earlier, we are here today on November 21st, 2023, to solicit feedback on that report. In terms of next steps, we'll review the testimony we received today and issue our final report on December 15, 2023. Based on the recommendations outlined in that final report, we will then begin the bill drafting process for bills to be introduced during the 2024 session, which, members, believe it or not, is less than 2 months away.
So for the charter for our interim working group on jobs and business was to evaluate the Maui unemployment rate and the approaches to restart business activity, as well as the impacts to tourism statewide, and to prepare recommendations for appropriate legislative action. We made it clear from the start that we weren't here to figure out what happened with the fire or blame people for what happened, but to look prospectively on how we could restart business activities for the state.
So this slide shows several of the stakeholder groups we did engage during the course of the last 2 months. So we did hear from the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism and the UH Economic Research Organization on the extent of the economic impact caused by the wildfires. We also did hear from the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations on the challenges with the volume of unemployment claims that were filed. And the Hawaii Tourism Authority shared information on what they were doing to encourage the return of respectful tourism to help jumpstart the economy. We also dove into the issue of workforce development and upskilling the thousands of employees, the unemployed residents of Maui, West Maui, and heard from UH Maui College, the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, and the Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters on their efforts. Lastly, we partnered with the Maui Chamber of Commerce and held an in-person meeting in West Maui, where we heard from members of the Lahaina Town Action Committee, the West Maui Taxpayers Association, and Maui Hotel and Lodging on the challenges they were facing as they sought to rebuild in the aftermath of the wildfires. At this point, we're now going to transition to our findings and recommendations.
So all 6 of the working groups were charged with coming up with finding and recommendations to go forward to draft bills into the upcoming session. So our finding number 1, the biggest thing that we always heard was unemployment. Obviously, with all of the jobs lost, it's going to be difficult to find employment, but the surge of unemployment claims due to the Maui wildfires has overtaxed DLIR Unemployment Insurance Division staff and systems. So our recommendations, as I'm sure our department's already working on, is to encourage the department to fill all vacant positions within the division, to explore temporary assignment of other state employees, and to expedite the RFP to modernize DLIR's antiquated mainframe. Thankfully, through our discussions, like I said, we know that they're already working on these issues. So thank you guys very much.
Okay, finding number 2, construction workforce. The existing number of construction tradespersons in the state will not be enough to meet the anticipated demand for laborers and construction trade persons to conduct the cleanup and reconstruction on Maui. We did hear specifically from UH Maui College and all the various offerings they have regarding apprenticeships as well as training programs. So we do have a recommendation here that we continue to support UH Maui College and provide them with additional resources. We did hear from CNHA and all the great work they're doing, training people with licensing and certifications in areas like hazmat. So we are encouraging all nonprofits out there who are involved in workforce development to apply for GIAs during the upcoming 2024 legislative session. And then lastly, we did hear from some of the construction unions on the need to go upstream with the State Department of Education and expand and promote career pathways in construction at the middle and high school levels. Just one last point here before we move to the next finding. The last thing we want to do is exacerbate the housing situation in West Maui, or Maui in general, by having to import hundreds, if not thousands, of construction workers from either Oahu or from the continent. So these are three recommendations we think can help prepare the community for the rebuilding of Maui.
Our finding number 3 is childcare services. The committee did go out to West Maui to have discussion with a lot of the business owners. And although we are not charged with the education component of the working groups, we did hear it so much that we felt it was important to put it in one of our findings and recommendation. The residents are finding it difficult to return to work with the lack of childcare providers in West Maui. So our recommendation is to encourage government, ourselves, and educational partners to expedite the construction and availability of childcare services in West Maui.
Okay, finding number 4, businesses. Business owners are finding it difficult to stabilize their existing economic situations and to plan for the future. So during our in-person meeting on West Maui, we did hear loud and clear from the business community that more than anything, they need reliable and timely information. We heard from about their experiences dealing with the U.S. Small Business Administration and some of the challenges in getting information regarding the rebuild in terms of the infrastructure. So we do have 3 recommendations here to assist the business community. Number 1 is to encourage our congressional delegation to work with the U.S. SBA to apply a little more flexibility with the loan program. We did hear that the current criteria for the loan program does not allow businesses to accept loans to rebuild elsewhere. It's meant to rebuild in that exact location where the disaster occurred. There were some business owners who mentioned that they were ready to rebuild in other parts of Maui, but the loan program didn't allow them to do that. The other thing that we heard about too was the challenges with these mortgages that were coming due. We know many local lenders and banks did offer a 90-day holiday, a grace period, if you will, regarding their mortgages. So we are requesting that they consider extending that period. And then lastly, we do have some recommendations for Maui County. We certainly sympathize with all the challenges that they're dealing with. There's clearly no manual when it comes to recovering from a wildfire like this. But one of the things we heard clearly, again, from the business community was the need for firmer updates on timelines for infrastructure restoration. We heard about some businesses that have electricity, they have sewer water capacity, but they don't know when the water line itself is going to be restored. One of the other challenges, we know that there is a resource center at the Lahaina Civic Center, but they did ask that we consider designating a federal resource navigator to make sure that it was clear to all the business owners and others on the extent of the availability of resources. And then lastly, just because of the nature of the wildfire, there were some areas that could probably reopen fairly soon. But again, the concern here is regarding permitting. We know that's a challenge pre-wildfire as well, but encouraging Maui County to think of a process to expedite the permitting process specifically.
And our last finding has to do with tourism. With visitors slowly returning to Maui, the need for responsible, respectful, and compassionate tourism is greater than ever before to ensure that visitors do not re-traumatize employees. It's already hard enough for them to get back to work. So our recommendations are to provide resources to the Hawaii Tourism Authority to continue its Malama Maui campaign and to encourage the adoption of the Maui Destination Management Plan. Also to explore development of a mobile application to educate visitors and promote areas of the state that are available and ready to accept visitors.
Okay, so at this point, that concludes our formal presentation. Thank you for your indulgence on that. So we're now going to transition to the public testimony portion, and we do have several testifiers here in the room present. So we'll first start off with Director JBUWG of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations.
Good afternoon, Co-Chairs Garrett and Holt, and honorable members of the working group. I'm JBUWG, Director of the State Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. You have our submitted testimony in front of you, which details our comments. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you, Director. Members, we'll do questions at the very end after all of our testifiers have testified. Up next, Sherry Minor McNamara of the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii.
Aloha, Chair Holt, Garrett, and members of the Jobs and Business Working Group. First of all, thank you so much for your hard work in putting this report together and really going out into the field and talking with the businesses. We had an opportunity to do that too with the Lahaina Town Action Committee, and it was very clear that they need support, as much support as they can get as they rebuild, as well as the businesses outside of Lahaina who have been impacted by the downturn of tourism. You have our written testimony. These are just preliminary bullet points. We still have to go and vet it through our process as well, but we thought every point that finding that you outlined is on point and fairly consistent of what we've been hearing as well. So thank you again, and we'll stand on our written testimony.
Okay, thank you very much. Up next is Ted Ralston with the Hawaii Pacific Advisory Council.
Chairs Holt and Garrett, you have our, and members, you have our written testimony, I think, there. I think it arrived, so I'm not going to read it, but I wanted to highlight a few things. First of all, this Hawaii Pacific Advisory Group that I represent is a voluntary network of people organized under a Native Hawaiian-owned organization called Hawaii Pacific Foundation. So we kind of jump in and fill gaps and connect dots to try to get things to happen. As an example, right after the fires occurred, we were able to get the first aerial survey conducted. Then we went back later and did in close with drones and in closer with 360 ball cameras on the trucks to begin getting some three-dimensional depiction of what the circumstances look like so that it'll assist with the debris removal and such. But the reason I bring that up is that's a job, that's a task, that's a career. And I wanted to just highlight the fact that there is the future of, there's going to be a lot of analysis work, there's going to be a lot of sensor work, a lot of analytical basis that has to go on here to support the recovery and support the renewal, including regenerative ag and things like this we've never seen before. So there's a whole domain of science-based, engineering-based work that's going to be coming, and we ought to be ready for it to be done by Hawaii people, Maui people, rather than by contractors coming from someplace else. So that takes STEM, that takes reach back into the educational system, and of course Maui College. So anyway, the four comments our group had for you is that one of them is related to your item number 2. You got all these temporary workers that are going to be coming in for reconstruction. Where are you going to put them? And this group that we work with, one of the groups we work with called Stability Operations International, is doing a similar recovery work in Scotland right now. And what they had to do was turn to ships that are near the end of their economic life, cruise ships, freighters, barges. They dragged them all over to Scotland and reconstructed them on the decks, housing, also for training facilities, and they can fabricate pieces of recovery on board ship right near where the work site is and avoid putting their recovery people forward into the places where people should be living, and also reducing the traffic situation. So just a thought, they said, hey, we can help you out here if you want. We'll be glad to show you how we did it, and we can make the connection for you if you'd like. I already mentioned that we have a pretty good high-tech base on Maui already. We have a lot of work in the space area and the DoD area there, and that is kind of a basis for the analysis and such that's going to be necessary for the reconstruction. So we ought to build on that base, and I'll just point out one organization called the Pacific Impact Zone, which is run out of HDTC, I believe, and they have the obligation or the role of putting local interns in with any of the companies that are coming from the mainland here to Hawaii to work and get the local knowledge, get knowledge at the local level. Sometimes these people are going to have to go away to learn the basics on the mainland and come back, but at least begin to build a stronger local technology base supporting the work in the fire recovery. And that kind of goes along with one of our other recommendations we made to the wildfire group, and that's we're going to have to get into modernizing our emergency management scheme all the way from organization to execution, and we're calling it Ahumoku based. We have islands. The islands have to be self-dependent. That's not like any place else in the country. All we have is our own resources on the island, and there's a lot of local intelligence we have to pull together to understand how to work an island. So in that context, what we need to do is reinvent what FEMA has constructed in terms of emergency management in a way that works on an island. That's again going to take technology to replace the support we would otherwise have through the interstate highway system. So this type of reconstruction of our emergency management mentality is going to also require technical support and local people trained and educated in the ways of artificial intelligence, things like this that replace the human capacity that we don't have. Anyway, that's what we've written up. That's our observations to you, that there's a whole role here for the technology-based and engineering-based aspects, and we can build on what we've already got on Maui and have that available as local capability to support the reconstruction.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're now going to transition to registered testifiers via Zoom. First, we have Rocky Mold with the Hawaii Solar Energy Association.
Aloha, co-chairs Holt and Garrett and members of the committee. First of all, I just want to say thank you for the work you've been doing and putting the report together. It was really interesting, and there's some good recommendations in there. I've submitted written testimony. I'll stand on that written testimony. But I'd like to just add, as we rebuild the grid and rebuild Lahaina and the Maui's economy going forward, we really should be looking at distributed energy, rooftop solar and energy storage as much as possible to form, because it provides resilient power that allows businesses and homes to ride through emergencies with reliable, affordable, and clean power. Also, investments in renewable energy and solar create jobs. So we should be training, as has been talked about, we really should be training our workforce of the future for installing solar and energy storage and other green jobs of the future. Also, it should be noted that solar and energy storage, it provides reliable power that's affordable. And those savings, the savings that businesses and people get, increases their spending power, puts more money back in their pocket, and shields them as a hedge against volatile and insecure fuel sources, and energy. So I'll stand on my written testimony, and thank you for allowing me to testify now.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, please also note we did receive testimony from Council Chair Alice Lee of the Maui County Council. I don't believe she's on, as well as from Nanea Lowe of the Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action. So at this point, we'll transition back to our room and ask if there's anyone here in the conference room wishing to testify in person. Seeing none, transitioning back to Zoom. Is there anyone logged in via Zoom who would like to testify at this point? Okay, seeing none. Members, will open it up to questions. Don't all speak at once. Okay, Representative Ward.
Rocky, are you still there? Rocky, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, question.
Yes, I'm here.
What is the percent of solar now in Maui in general, and particularly, specifically Lahaina in the area? You say it's in dire need. How much was there? How much is left, et cetera? The state of the art of solar there prior to the fire.
It's at about 50-ish%. I need to check the exact numbers, but on Maui it was about at 50-ish%, maybe even higher actually. In Lahaina, there were, obviously there were a number of systems that were taken out by the fire. Rooftop solar energy storage can't stop a fire once it's started. But what it can provide is folks that, for folks that did, their place wasn't burned down, the grid went down. And so the solar provided, backup power for them during that. I do know that there are member companies of the Hawaii Solar Energy Association that had significant presence in Lahaina. We were significantly represented there, but I don't have the exact numbers of the percentage in that area. I do know that since the fire, HECO's moved quickly to rebuild the grid in some areas, but there's still one area where HECO is not allowing interconnection of solar because they're having to gauge the supply and demand balance of the grid there. But yeah, there is a significant amount of solar there. I can look it up and let me look up the actual percentage right now.
Let me go to the second,
about-
Rocky, second question, probably more important. You just said that the solar backup power was available and helped out. When the police couldn't talk to the fire department didn't talk to police, are you saying that they had solar backup power, they didn't use it, or they just didn't have it, period?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that along with the grid going down and power going down, communication systems go down as well. And one of the things that we actually did, we actually, our industry, members of the solar industry went in and installed solar-powered Starlink systems, which brought Wi-Fi, internet access, and cell phone service to the area that was gone. I don't know the specifics of the emergency communication systems that the police and fire department were using, but certainly installing solar at fire departments, at police stations, and providing mobile solar units for police and fire can serve a significant role in disaster response and recovery and responding to emergencies.
Are you saying they don't?
Keeping
Are you saying they don't have it now, either in the police or in the fire departments, solar in their buildings, et cetera?
I don't know the exact numbers. I do know that there have been, on Oahu, I do know that there have been fire departments that have been installing solar and energy storage at their fireplaces to act as, for resiliency purposes. I don't know if they had done that on Maui yet. You'd have to ask someone from Maui if from the police department and fire departments of Maui if they have distributed solar on their facilities.
Thank you for your...
There was a bill, SB 1261, last year that actually called for the state and the counties to assess the feasibility of installing rooftop solar and energy storage at emergency responder facilities, in particular, and to expedite installing these types of resilient power systems.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Yes, Rep. Nakamura?
Question for DLIR. Thank you for being here. I wanted to ask about, I guess it's been over a month where we met and you gave us the latest update, but was just wondering how many claims are there for unemployment, and I know that you have initial claims here, but ongoing claims?
I think we've
How
been
many?
ongoing claims. The weekly claims is about 7,000 to 8,000. 5,700 last week.
5,700.
5,700. Yeah.
Okay. And then there was also a question raised in some other testimony about the releasing of funds to expedite the modernization of the system. I know, you guys are trying to contract that out to modernize the UI information system. Is there any way to expedite that process?
Well, we already posted the award, and now we're in the process of trying to negotiate a contract.
Okay.
And hopefully, if everything goes, we could start at beginning of next year.
Start,
But-
and how
Yeah,
long
because
is it
you still
expected
gotta.
to take
How long?
to complete the modernization project?
I think we're estimating about 3 years.
3 years.
Yes, because it's not like we can just, we have to build the car while we're riding it. So it's not like we can just shut it down and, we still has to process a lot of the claims.
One of the recommendations was to do cross-training among state employees, but your testimony says that that really didn't work during the pandemic, that caused more problems for the department. Do you have any other suggestions on how to expedite the process if cross-training isn't the right way to go about it?
I mean, I think it's more, because the positions are very specialized. It's not like you can just, it's not like painting a fence where you can just bring in somebody and, this is, very, it's very specialized. And, as you know, I mean, if we make a mistake or we overpay, we're on the hook. So we gotta make sure that, properly trained. It's not like we can just, bring in more people. And sometimes you have too many cooks in the kitchen. Sometimes it's not, it's not as good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Representative La Chica?
Aloha, my question is also for Director Butai. It's on the disaster unemployment assistance, DUA, through FEMA. In your testimony, you had written that a new ID verification method is being used to really catch fraud, and thanks for doing that. However, in the breakdown of DUA claims, it does seem like there's a significantly high number, about 57% of denials, and then 35% of which is on ID proofing. Does the department know what exactly is causing this kind of, what is the barrier into getting the denial? Is it through the ID request? Is it through being able to navigate through the new system? But is there any additional information to tell us why?
Yeah, they can, we made it easier to do the identity verification. They can go on login.gov. And if they have issues with going online, they can go on the U.S. Post Office. And, sometimes when, they don't want to do their identity proofing, I mean, you can kind of, surmise maybe there's some, there could be fraud. Because it's, if they do their ID proofing, I mean, we can, continue the processing. But if they don't even do that part, then.
Could it be possible that, so going through online, they're required to, take a picture of their ID and then upload it through the system?
Yes, they can go, on login.gov and they upload, they upload.
Yeah, we see a lot of, these things through other types of, applications through. But so through that process, could it be possible that, it is there might be some technological either barrier or, some folks just don't have the ability to upload their picture and don't have the ability to go to the post office. Like, I'm just trying to understand, is there an opportunity to work with your department to work through these challenges so that we don't have, if it is not in case of fraud, then what are we doing to help the folks who are struggling to kind of go through the process?
I mean, we follow up with, contacted them to, they can come to our office. I mean, we have the Lahaina DRC, or they can even go to our office in Wailuku. So we've, there's many ways we've provided the services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? Sure. Rep. Ward?
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow that up, it says in that report you have 3,700 claims. 2,000 of them were kicked out because of, are you guys playing hardball, too hard-nosed with them? Or is it your system that says, if you don't do this and that, you're out of here? Or is it there's so much fraudulent phony scammers over there that your system kicks out 2 out of 3 guys. It just sounds a bit odd when
Well-
people are hurting so much and the system is rejecting 2/3 of them.
Well, DUA is a manual process. So 2,131 were denied because it consists of 1,295 because of ID proofing. They have to verify their identity, and then the other one is they have to provide, documentation of their income. And if, and they still could be eligible if they provide, if they do those, the identity proofing and also provide the.
So how do you explain that? People who are hurting don't have any money and they can't come up with the proof? I mean, again, is it systemic or is it these people are crooked?
Well, that's the thing about, when.
Two-thirds are being
when-
rejected.
Yeah, I mean,
applying.
when people talk about initial claims, I mean, there's such a thing as, anybody can file a claim, but the key is whether it's valid.
So it sounds like it's not much validity here when you've got 2,000 rejected out of 3,000 or so.
That's
Is that-
correct.
Is that,
Well, yeah, it may not be.
does that happen in other islands or only in Maui? Or is this kind of a common statistic where you get so many rejections? How are we the point is, how are we supposed to look at this? People are hurting, crying about nobody's helping me from government?
Well, they could have, because because the way the DUA is that they have to not be eligible for the UI, the regular UI. So maybe they were eligible for the UIs, but sometimes they also want to think they can get DUA, but you cannot get them concurrently.
So they may be fishing, but what is the criteria that, when they get rejected, what is the level of criteria to get into DUA?
Well,
In other words, they get rejected from the UI, they go into DUA, and what generally do they not meet? Or is it just the information of the proof of identity, et cetera?
Well, usually the people that collects DUA are the ones that are not eligible for the regular UI. They tend to be business owners or self-employed, or they were providing the majority of the support for a household, and then now they have to provide because maybe the head of the household passed away, or they got injured due to the fire.
So how high is the bar they have to meet the criteria to get eligible for DUA? Is it really a high bar, or is it, again, the statistics say it's pretty high, unless they're, again, scamming you or
Mhm. And then they have to have, because we've had cases where, they didn't even file income tax returns, and then suddenly now that they want, federal assistance, I mean, it's not my job to go and make sure, everybody files their income tax return, but if you want, if you want federal assistance, you gotta do your part.
So that's one of the high bars then. You got to show us your income tax return. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's because I don't think taxpayers should be giving money to somebody who's not even complying with the with the requirements. And this is again, this is not a state program. It's not a DLIR program. This is a FEMA program, and they come up with the the requirements.
And if they get turned down, they can go back again, correct?
They can appeal. Yeah, they can
Okay,
appeal.
good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Rep. Morikawa?
Thank you. I'm not sure, Director, if you can help me with this, but I was just wondering if you have contracted some organizations to get people working, temporary jobs, what have you, but what happens to a person's benefits? Like, if he doesn't make enough money, does he qualify for welfare? Is there a referral system for that? Or if there aren't any medical coverages, do they qualify for Medicaid in addition to the work that they do? Do you have any
Well,
statistics on that?
I mean, I gotta say, a lot of our workforce development division, I mean, you talk about, going, I mean, they put their heart and soul, because it's not just, the work that they do is not just giving, trying to find a position, but sometimes they do the whole wraparound, you know, whether they try to find them housing, because if
So
you.
there is assistance for these people if they don't make enough, maybe they qualify for some welfare assistance, or they might qualify for Medicaid?
Yeah, we work with DHS.
do?
Yeah, we work.
Oh,
with
you
the-
do, that's, okay, good, thank you for that.
Members, any other questions? Yeah, I have one, Director. Regarding our recommendations on the unemployment side, can certainly respect, you know, the department's position regarding temporary signing or detailing employees to your department. We certainly don't want people making things worse. But, you know, our other recommendation was regarding filling all the vacant positions within the UI division. Do you have data as to how many FTEs you currently have within that division and how many vacancies relative to that?
Yeah, we, you know, we have a total of 446 position. Civil service is 242, and then exempt is 204, and then the vacancy for the civil service is 110, and then the exempt is 181. So a total of 291 vacancy out of the 446.
Okay, so you're talking almost 2/3 of your department is currently vacant?
And the way you got to look at that, Chair, is that, you know, some of the positions, some are federal, they're federal funded, but they, you know, we're not going to fill it if there's no, you know, if we don't have the funding. So, you know.
Do you have an estimate as to how much that might be of the 291? Of the 291 you said are vacant, like how much of that you don't have federal funding for, so it would remain vacant?
Do you know how many? Yeah, yeah, it's the special projects that, you know, it's out of that 291, 181 is the exempt, and that's mostly for, you know, the special projects.
Okay. So of the 110 civil service positions, can you update us on your activities to fill those?
Okay, will do, Chair.
Okay, and then lastly, just regarding the volume of the claims, I know in your testimony there was, you know, a little over 18,000 claims in the days after the wildfire, but now you're down to about 5,785 as of a week and a half ago. Is it fair to say that you guys are all caught up with the current claims, or is there still a backlog
I think,
affecting applicants?
yeah, I think we're pretty much, you know, caught up and then, you know, like on the DUA is the one that 95% have already been acted on.
Right. Okay.
So, because, yeah, there's the regular unemployment, and then you also have the DUA, which is the one, like I said, that's a, you know, manual process.
Okay, and then could you just explain to the committee, so again, the cause of or the reason for the drop from 18,000 down to 5,700? Are these people you think found employment elsewhere? Or could this be evidence of some out-migration too, where people, obviously you have to live on the island still to qualify. If you move to the continent, you're not going to qualify for unemployment, or you shouldn't anyway. But can you, what do you attribute this decline to?
Yeah, that's initial claims is anybody, like I said, on the claims, anybody can file a claim. I mean, whether it's valid, you know, it's not so, you know, the 5,785 is the weekly claims. So, you know, like I said, that's the one where we, you know, we make payments.
Okay, so that means at that point, they've been verified as being eligible for UI then?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes,
One
Rep.
question.
Morikawa.
Thank you. This is about, for personnel. Do you have sufficient number of trainers for your new employees?
I believe we do. I mean, I think we've, you know, I think we've done a good job. I mean, they've been working tirelessly to process all these claims. I mean, because it's, you know, it's a very specialized, with technical, you know, knowledge on the UI. I mean, it's not like something where you can just hire somebody off the street and then they can
Right, so
start.
when a person is hired, do you hire them one at a time, or do they come in a group where you can have a class session to train, or are you training each individual employee one at a time?
Well, we find, if we find good ones, I mean, we can, bring them as,
But I can see where the hangup would be, where your people training these new employees are being tied up from doing other responsibilities.
Mhm. No, I mean, if we have good candidates, I mean, we'll bring them, en masse, but it's
Like
better
if you
to,
need more trainers, you should maybe be asking for more
yeah.
of that type of employee. Thank you.
One more question.
Okay, Rep. Nakamura?
Sorry, just to follow up on Chair's question, of the 5,785 claims, how many are on Maui?
That's all Maui. That's just for Maui, right? Yeah,
Have-
this is just for
They
Maui.
could, but they could have moved to another
Mhm.
island from Maui
Then they would,
and receive this.
yeah.
Do we have that data?
How many have moved out of Maui?
Right.
Yeah, we don't have, but we can see what we can find, Rep.
Okay, thank you, Director. I just have one question for the Chamber of Commerce. Hi there. Regarding finding for business assistance due to extraordinary circumstances, can you just advise us what you would like the legislature to focus on to support the business community out of the several bullet points you have listed here?
Yeah, I think, the comment, as we met with different businesses, it was the bridge funding that would be impactful, both Lahaina-based and not Lahaina-based. And so, but while we know that funding is always challenging to get, another feedback we've been hearing is more providing technical assistance to these businesses, helping them pivot, helping them relocate. So while financial resources, helpful, I think non-financial service in terms, but legislatively, I don't know yet what that looks like, but that's something, perhaps maybe funding for that type of services would be helpful as well.
Okay, and then you do mention here that the state could pass a resolution to ask Congress to provide pandemic loan forgiveness to
Yeah.
businesses. Have you spoken to our delegation regarding that?
We have. So last month, we took a delegation, both public and private stakeholders, some from Maui as well as here, including CNHA as well, and met with various agencies, which included the White House, SBA, EDA, as well as housing, and then a CODEL. And we did express to them that what we've been hearing from businesses, whether loan forgiveness or some type of PPP type of loans or grants. But we do know that any type of monies will need to be authorized by Congress, which right now is challenging. So while the CODEL understands and have been advocating and introducing bills, and fully understand the reality of situation may be challenging. But with that said, it doesn't hurt to continue to add and advocate through resolutions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Members, any other questions? Yes, Rep. Ward.
Sherry, continue with that. I want you to put on a doctor's hat or stethoscope and a nurse and give me the temperature that you see in Maui vis-a-vis what we are doing, how we're doing it. I had, when we had a meeting in Maui, I had a follow-up call a couple of days ago saying, what the hell are you guys doing? We talked to you 3 weeks ago, you haven't done anything, et cetera. What do you sense is the temperature of the business community to come back with some vitality, or at least that what we are doing is going to be helpful, or is it where people have kind of given up? Even though my call may have been an extreme desperation, because he's lost 3 businesses out of 4.
Mm-hmm. I know Maui Chamber has been boots on the grounds and more communicating with the businesses there. So I'm only providing feedback from the meetings we've had.
You're indirect.
And then, right, and we've been hearing. I think it's in here, but having more coordinated information, I think they recognize how much you all are doing, and I'm appreciative of putting together a working group and coming up with substantive solutions to helping with the economic recovery efforts. and also on the county level and the CODEL. But like I said, a lot of them, Lahaina-based ones, they don't have anything, right? Because what's different between the pandemic and now, they don't have a structure. Whereas during the pandemic, they just had to close the doors or find different ways to get the goods out there. But now they have to deal with a lot more. And on top of that, for some, still have to pay rent when there is no structure. And this is all anecdotal. This is what we're hearing. So, I think this is a good start in what we can do to focus on economic recovery, but we do know that there needs to be so much more, and it will take this collaborative effort both on the federal, state, and county levels to come up with support for our local businesses so that they can restore the jobs and lower the unemployment rate that has happened like pretty much overnight.
Have any numbers shifted to your chamber or moved to Oahu that you know of? I know Hero said there was some of that going to go on.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not aware of any numbers right now. I do know that some Lahaina-based businesses do want to reopen, but they obviously can't reopen in Lahaina, so looking at relocating elsewhere. But then in our testimony, we identified some like permitting or liquor licensing issues, at least that pertains to restaurants. So
Lastly, I would say, please keep us posted on the pulse of this, because when I hear we're doing too little, too slowly, I mean, businesses run on timelines, and we say, well, 2 to 4 years, I can't plan my life with 2 to 4 years before I can get back into business. So your conduit at the chamber here would be very helpful for us.
yeah, we see it as an immediate term support, middle, long term, right? So that's why it's going to be even more important to have this coordinated effort. And I can't reemphasize how important having this working group and identifying these areas, which is consistent with what we've been hearing as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Ward. Final call for questions.
This is for Sherry.
Rep. Nakamura, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks again for your testimony. I wanted to ask you, during the pandemic, we had to assist businesses with pivoting, and I was just wondering how we got those funds out. Was it through, I know SBA did some, but was it through the UH or community colleges?
So it came out of CARES funding, both for the Hawaii Restaurant Card and the Hawaii Business Pivot Program, which the governor allocated, I believe, $75 million for the restaurant card, and if I'm not mistaken, $25 million for the business pivot. So the chamber actually administered that program.
Oh.
Yeah. And I know the city and county of Honolulu had their own small business grant program. That was administered through the credit unions.
So the
Yeah.
chamber did classes for the businesses who wanted to pivot?
Yes, so
Provide
we,
the
the way,
one-on or group training or one-on-one training?
yeah, so there had to be certain criteria. We did webinars, but we also had a pool of consultants that could help with, let's say, e-commerce or, I guess, exporting elsewhere. I forgot what the exact topics are. But yes, we had a pool of different consultants to address different ways businesses could pivot their business at that time.
And do you feel that was a successful, you had successful outcomes from that work?
I believe so. There are a lot of retailers that did not have e-commerce, but ended up doing so. What we can do is go back to our records and share with you some of the success stories and how these businesses pivoted.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, you're very welcome. Final call for questions. Okay, Rep. Holt.
Well, thank you everybody for coming and participating today in person and on Zoom. Our working group has a specific charge and responsibility for business and jobs, but it's only one aspect in the recovery, as you can tell by the 6 different working groups we have. And although we would like to, snap our fingers and have these businesses be able to turn back their power and water and sewer, there are a lot of different factors that play into it. A lot of these businesses were built over the shoreline and close to the shoreline. So, even that discussion is going to be a big discussion going forward on how we rebuild Lahaina. But I want to thank everybody. We will be making some fixes to the draft report and putting out a final report before the deadline of December 15th. I think we will send the final out to the members before we file it with the clerk's office. But thank you, everybody, for the testimony, and we look forward to working with everybody in the next session. So this meeting is adjourned.